In 19 BBY, shortly after the declaration of a new order, Newt Gunray of the Trade Federation issued a shutdown command to the Separatist droid army, bringing an end to the Clone Wars. The key worlds of the Confederacy of Independent Systems were occupied by the Republic-turned-Imperial military, and with Count Dooku, General Grievous, and soon the Separatist Council all dead, the CIS ceased to exist, and the powerful megacorporations that backed it were nationalized by the Empire. But this wasn't the end for the Separatists, at least not for all of them. The megacorporations and their droid armies had never been the heart of the Confederacy, and all across the galaxy, Separatist holdouts kept up their fight. In this video, we'll be telling the stories of the major holdouts and the war the Empire waged against them.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Clone Wars broke the back of the Separatist movement, as Count Dooku and his Sith Master had intended, and the newborn Empire emerged from the war as the dominant power in the galaxy. But while the Separatists had been beaten, many survived the war, and they weren't willing to give up the fight just because Newt Gunray told them to. Many of these holdouts represented the original elements of the Separatist movement that the Sith and megacorporations had co-opted. They genuinely believed in independence and an end to exploitation of the Rim, and they saw the rise of the Empire as the vindication of all their beliefs about Republic corruption. However, the survival of these Separatists was actually part of Palpatine's plan. The Separatist holdouts were necessary for the Empire. They provided justification for its existence. Empires require war and expansion to justify their militarization and autocracy, and the Separatist holdouts were an excellent excuse for imperialization. An enemy that Palpatine could point to as an excuse for just about anything. Even as the Empire celebrated the end of the Clone Wars, it declared the start of a new war, framed as a glorious campaign to restore peace and order, the reconquest of the Rim. The reconquest of the Rim was essentially just round 2 of the Clone Wars, lasting from 19 BBY to 17 BBY. In it, the Empire won over much of the inner galaxy with uncompromising campaigns against Separatists, pirates, and slavers alike out on the Rim, expanding the borders of the Empire and creating new heroes for Imperial loyalists to venerate in place of the now exterminated Jedi. For the Separatists, however, it was the triumph of evil and tyranny, the doomed last stand of a once mighty movement. Few Separatist holdouts survived past 17 BBY. Almost all of those that did eventually merged into the Rebel Alliance. Many of you likely know of 2 particular Separatist holdouts, the super tactical droid Kalani's small holdout on Agamar, as seen in Star Wars Rebels, and the Desix holdout, as seen in the Bad Batch. Both of these are canon examples, whereas the ones we'll be talking about today were from Legends, but they're decent archetypes of the 2 main kinds of Separatists that persisted after the Clone Wars. Kalani's small droid crew represents the corporate factions and CIS military types that refused to lay down their weapons when the Separatist Council was wiped out. They were by far the minority, though they were generally the best equipped. Kalani's holdout from Rebels is unique in that it's exclusively composed of droids that refused the shutdown command. There are no other examples of this happening in Legends or canon, and the Separatist holdouts that fought with droids almost all relied on reactivated armies that had been salvaged from abandoned warehouses. Most Separatist holdouts were much more like the Desix holdout from the Bad Batch, politically inclined Separatists who genuinely stood for the values of the movement. Some of them used reactivated droid army tech, but the majority of these actually didn't have access to that sort of hardware and instead employed organic militias in their fight against the Empire. Additionally, the Desix and Agamar holdouts from canon are actually much smaller than the holdouts from Legends, which often had a presence across entire sectors. Initially, the most powerful Separatist holdouts were the Cymerthians and the Trade Federation Resistance. The latter is exactly what it sounds like. Factions within the Trade Federation that refused to acknowledge the corporation's nationalization by the Empire. Composed of several Trade Defense Force leaders under Customs Visor Marath Voru, this holdout controlled a considerable portion of the Trade Federation fleet, and was originally based on Enoch, a crucial Trade Federation fortress world near Naboo. Vuru, like most of the galaxy, was unaware that the Separatist Council was killed and refused to accept the Trade Federation's treaty with the Empire because neither Newt Gunray nor Rune Harko had signed it. Other Trade Federation rebels regrouped with Vuru at Enoch, but their stand against the Empire didn't last long. Vuru's fleet was crushed at Farstein during the Five Veils campaign, and the Visor himself was captured at Hook Nebula. Without his leadership, what was left of the Trade Federation dissolved. The Cymerthians were a bit more spirited. Cymerth was a crucial Separatist factory world during the Clone Wars, located in the Foundry of the Confederacy, the CIS's primary industrial base. It was powerful both in the Separatist political sphere and among the Separatist Council factions, as it was both a major producer of battle droids and the home of Senator Toonbuk Tura, one of the Separatist movement's fiercest political advocates. Unlike many Separatist political leaders and the Separatist parliament on which she served, Tura had survived the end of the Clone Wars, and her homeworld wasn't immediately occupied by Imperial forces. This gave Tura an opportunity, which she immediately seized. Toonbuk Tura not only reactivated lots of old CIS military assets, but she also reactivated the droid factories on her homeworld and other neighboring industrial worlds, restarting part of the Foundry of the Confederacy. Other local Separatist holdouts rallied behind her, and it took the Empire months of hard fighting to make any progress against their reactivated fleet. Eventually, after a bitter war of attrition, the Empire was able to capture Medalorn and then Cymerth itself, shutting down Tura's reactivated factories. Imperial forces then hunted down and killed the former senator and the other local Separatist leaders, ending the Cymerthian insurrection. Not every Separatist holdout stuck to the tactics of the last war, however. Many of the more powerful factions operated as raiders harassing Imperial targets, and some even collaborated with slavers and pirates in the most remote parts of the Rim. Examples of this include the Seotric Holdouts, a motley band of Mandalorian protectors and separatists from Seotric, Selenon, and Sereno that allied with local mercenary bands and Thalassian slavers, all under the command of a clique of Muns who had fled the Battle of Magito. They hid out near the void of Trapani on the northern fringe of the galaxy, but they were overwhelmed and destroyed during the Seotric offensive at the start of the reconquest of the Rim. In the Naulian crisis of 18 BBY, a similar alliance of Aquilish Harch Raiders and Separatists began attacking Imperial Loyalist worlds across a swath of the Mid-Rim, attempting to take revenge against the Empire for the conquest of their homeworlds. They too were defeated pretty early on. By 17 BBY, the Empire had thrashed pretty much all of the major Separatist holdouts, and most of the remaining ones were either single system holdouts or located in the remote Western Reaches, a region of wild space known for its lawlessness. The Empire waged war against the latter group in the Western Reaches operation, the last campaign of the reconquest of the Rim, and by the operation's end, it deemed the Separatist holdouts functionally defeated. But some Separatists endured, in the Western Reaches especially, and one in particular made a mark on Imperial history. He was a Geonosian named Gizor Dellso, and if you've played the original Battlefront 2, you've probably heard of him. Sometime between 17 and 12 BBY, Gizor Dellso set up shop on Mustafar in the Western Reaches, where he discovered an abandoned droid factory and warehouses full of old Separatist tech, including several fully functional capital ships. Dellso reactivated all of it and attempted to rebuild the military might of the CIS. Mustafar had seen the end of the Clone Wars and the original Confederacy, but Dellso hoped that it would be the start of a new Confederacy and a new war with the Empire. Unfortunately for him, the Empire learned about his activities before his army was ready, and Darth Vader and the 501st Legion crushed Dellso's holdout in a secret but brutal military campaign. Gizor Dellso and his army were the last major Separatist holdout to trouble the Empire. The Separatist remnants and their second round of the Clone Wars met their end on the same world the originals had. But as we all know, the Separatist cause re-emerged in a new form 15 years later, and they triumphed over the Empire in the end. But what do you think? Would you like to see any of these stories make it over to canon? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.